You know how they say some people just give off weird vibes? Imagine waking up to find that weird vibe person cutting your hair at 2 a.m. So this is a story of mine from high school. When I was like 12, a new neighbor moved in with her 2 sons. To avoid using real names, I'll call them Peter and Paul. Peter was a little developmentally challenged and generally awkward, but I had a little crush on him and we hung out a lot. His brother, who was a year behind me, was quiet and sort of odd. He just had serial killer vibes, even at 11. So the years went by. Peter and I stopped hanging out because we got older and hung out with other people. You know the drill. But Paul just sort of lingered. We all went to the same high school about 15 minutes outside of the neighborhood. He would just be everywhere I was. I was at my locker. He was around the corner looking. I was eating lunch outside with my friends, and he was a table over, looking. He was in the stairwell every time I changed classes. I swear he had my schedule memorized. So in my senior year, I finally got used to it. He seemed harmless, and I was fine with just letting him be for a few more months. Plus, as every girl knows, rejecting guys can be dangerous. Yeah, he's harmless now, but Paul was a big dude. He could have beat me to a pulp if he really wanted. Just because he was the silent, creepy type didn't mean he couldn't go full Cujo. I resolved to leave him be and let him stalk away. I think he noticed I stopped caring, and for some reason that made him ramp it up. I started getting texts from an unknown number. It started with simple hellos. Then it moved to photos of various body parts. An arm, a hand, a calf, then a full-on pic of, well, you know. Then it moved to photos of my house at night. Progressively, they got worse until I had a picture of myself, sitting on my bed, shot from my bedroom window. At this point, I wanted to call the police, but I felt so bad. His mom is a really nice lady, and like I said, I used to have a thing for his brother. What kind of asshole am I if I reported him to the cops? He'd never get into college, never get a girlfriend. Not that he should, honestly. And a bunch of other stuff you probably can't get if you've been convinced of stalking and sending inappropriate pics. So I kept letting it slide. Huge mistake. It was a Sunday morning, so no school, and I slept in late. My mom was at church and my dad got dragged along with her, so I had the house to myself. The doorbell rang. I got up, pissed off as one would be when the doorbell woke them up at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, and there was an envelope on my doorstep. Obviously, the mailman isn't coming on Sunday, and he's not dropping letters on my front porch with no address or stamp either. I felt super uncomfortable, and I felt like I was being watched. I grabbed the envelope, shut the door, and locked it. Then I went around and checked and locked all the other doors and windows. Inside was a rambling manifesto-style love letter in full-on serial killer handwriting with a chunk of his hair inside. It still had the roots. He seriously ripped a chunk out to send to me. At this point, I was losing my shit. This was creepy turned up to 11. I went over to his house and explained the situation to his mom, who of course was horrified and apologized. I felt bad snitching, but at this point, it was unhealthy for him and really scary for me. I went back home and felt a lot better having just manned up and dealt with it. So then Valentine's Day rolls around. This is when shit hit the fan. I woke up at around 2 a.m. on February 14th. I usually sleep through the night really well, but somebody was touching me. It was Paul, standing over me with a pair of scissors, cutting my hair. I froze in fear for a solid 30 seconds before we made eye contact. I didn't even scream, I was just petrified. And what does he do? He smiled. Not like a regular smile, I swear to God, his entire face stretched. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. He snipped off the chunk of hair he was holding and just walked out of my room into the hallway. At that point, I started screaming at the top of my lungs for my dad. He ran in, obviously freaked out, and went for his gun, and my mom ran in to see what happened. The police went to talk to him the next day, and he ended up being let off with a warning, which is pretty bull if you ask me. He literally broke into my house and cut my hair while I slept. What's even worse is I got the feeling he'd been in my room when I didn't know before. I'd been finding Snickers wrappers in the back of my closet for months. I hate Snickers. I just figured it was one of my friends being a slob. His family moved a few weeks later. His poor mom was so embarrassed she couldn't even talk to my family. I feel bad for her. It wasn't her fault. I think he was just wired a little wrong. But yeah, that's the story of my Valentine stalker. Remember to lock your doors and windows tonight.